Hello everyone and welcome to this ISM Trust webinar, Teaching Music to Neurodiverse Students. My name is Ed Phelan. I am the Knowledge Hub and Resources Manager here at the ISM. For the purpose of accessibility, I'm a white male with blonde hair wearing a green shirt behind a white background. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. There's a Q&A function below. Please feel free to ask questions throughout and we might get to them at the end if we have some time. This webinar will be recorded and the slides and webinar will be shared with you afterwards. Andrew is going to give us 45-minute or so presentation, and then we are going to do a 10-minute or so Q&A. So we're really looking forward to it. I'm going to pass over to Andrew now.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm a white male with dark hair and greying beard with glasses in a studio with some guitars in the background. Can I just say a thank you for joining us today on the webinar. I'd like to extend also a special thanks to the ISM Trust for facilitating what I think is a really important discussion. My goal for today's session is for each of you to leave with a deeper understanding of neurodiversity and to enhance your existing teaching toolkit by introducing you to innovative methods of communication, engagement, and comprehension. These strategies are designed to foster positive outcomes and support diverse learning techniques. So as a quick introduction, I want to share that after over 30 years of teaching music, some of my most successful students are neurodiverse. Let me just qualify the term successful. These are past students who are thriving and regarded highly in their specific field. Among them is a well-established head of music at an inner London school with regular large classes of GCSE and A-level students, one large orchestra, 3 choirs, and a team of peripatetic music staff, while others include international guitarists, session musicians and guitar teachers. Additionally, 2 have achieved remarkable success as composers for films in Los Angeles, and another is a world-renowned DJ, and one is an award-winning filmmaker, director and writer who also happens to be my business partner. So I look forward to sharing insights and strategies that can help you support all learners more effectively. So what qualifies me to talk to you today? Well, I consider myself quite privileged, really. I kicked off my performing career early on, graduated from the Royal Academy of Music and enjoyed a fulfilling life as a touring concert guitarist. I've played all styles of guitar and work as a session musician for film soundtracks and various other music enterprises. And I've worked with some of the most illustrious classical, rock and pop artists. Teaching, however, has always been a passion of mine, whether in universities, conservatoires, as a mentor or coach, as a private tutor, or as a peripatetic guitar teacher. But in 2004, my wife and I began fostering, which really expanded my skills in working with children, especially those with learning disabilities, behavioural difficulties, and communication challenges, which when we first started fostering, there were very few that understood autism or ADHD, and this soon became our area of speciality. This journey inspired me to work collaboratively with a variety of therapeutic specialists, and through the use of music technology, we created therapeutic and educational approaches to help neurodivergent individuals unlock cognitive and social abilities. I also run my own recording company and media company and co-founded the award-winning charity FASD Awareness in 2018, supporting individuals with congenital brain injuries brought on by prenatal alcohol exposure. I am passionate about challenging perceptions of disabilities in music. I've worked with various artists and organisations to create platforms that celebrate disabled talent through inclusive music festivals and workshops around the world. While I know there are many far more qualified than myself to present to you today, I can hope to bring a unique perspective, and that's one rooted in lived experience. So let's dive in. The term neurodivergent refers to individuals whose brain differences impact how they think and function, resulting in unique strengths and challenges compared to neurotypical individuals who do not have such differences. Neurodivergent conditions can include medical disorders and learning disabilities, but can also bring advantages such as enhanced memory or exceptional problem solving. Neurodivergent is not a medical label. Rather, it serves as an inclusive term that avoids the binary classification of normal versus abnormal. Recognizing the diversity in brain development, the contrasting term neurotypical describes those whose cognitive processes are not influenced by any neurological difference. The concept of neurodivergence stems from neurodiversity, a term coined by the Australian sociologist Judy Singer in 1998. This term emphasizes that every brain is unique, similar to fingerprints. So this recognition challenges the traditional medical approach of defining health in terms of normalcy, which often categorizes individuals based on a rigid set of criteria. Let's look at two individuals with musical talent. Lucy here is a 13-year-old with autism spectrum disorder who is blind. You might know her from Channel 4's The Piano. She has a natural talent for playing the piano but struggles with social interactions, and her skills don't come from formal training. Dominic on the right is a friend of mine, over 50, who is neurotypical. He has developed his musical skills through practice and social experiences. While Dominic may not play the piano as well as Lucy, that doesn't mean he is any less capable. Lucy's abilities showcase how neurodiversity values different ways of learning and processing information. This example highlights that everyone has unique skills and strengths, emphasizing the importance of appreciating all forms of cognitive diversity. Over the past 5 to 10 years, there's been a real shift in how mainstream society views neurological differences. People are starting to recognize that neurodivergent individuals can make amazing contributions to our world. For example, some individuals with high functioning autism can have incredible focus and attention to detail, which can be a huge asset in fields like technology, the arts, and the sciences. Many individuals with ADHD have immense energy and determination and thrive as actors, musicians, and artists. However, some individuals with a diagnosis feel that the conversation has swung too far the other way, and being neurodivergent is sometimes seen as a badge of honor. While it's great to celebrate these differences, we mustn't forget the social challenges and stigma that many neurodivergent people have faced every single day. The bullying and discrimination they may have experienced in the past can leave lasting scars. The concept of neurodiversity encourages us to shift our focus from what individuals might lack to the societal barriers that prevent them from fully participating and succeeding. It advocates for changes in our environments, policies, and attitudes to creating more inclusive spaces for everyone. So to start with, we must get to grips with the differences in neurodiversity. Understanding their characteristics can help you tailor your teaching methods. So here are a few of the key diagnoses that you may come across with a brief explanation. You can do a deeper dive into these with further research. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects communication, social interaction, and behavior. Individuals with ASD may experience challenges with social cues, sensory sensitivities, and repetitive behaviors of interests. ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is characterized by inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Individuals with ADHD may struggle with focus, organization, and managing their impulses. FASD, or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, is an umbrella term used to describe a series of diagnoses or conditions brought about due to prenatal alcohol exposure. It actually presents around 6 times the rate of autism and is a congenital brain injury. Dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty that affects reading and spelling. Individuals with dyslexia may find it challenging to decode words, process language, or understand written text and music notation. Dyspraxia, now known as developmental coordination disorder or DCD, affects a person's ability to plan, organize, and execute movements. Individuals with dyspraxia may experience challenges with fine motor skills, gross motor skills, coordination, and balance. Choosing the right instrument in this case would be crucial. Dyscalculia is a specific learning difficulty that affects mathematical abilities. Individuals with dyscalculia may struggle with maths concepts, number sense, and calculation skills. Dysgraphia is a specific learning difficulty that affects writing. Individuals with dysgraphia may struggle with handwriting, spelling, and organizing written thoughts. Tourette syndrome, that's a neurological disorder characterized by tics, which are sudden involuntary movements or vocalizations. And synesthesia is a neurological phenomenon where stimulation of one sensory or cognitive pathway leads to automatic involuntary experiences in another. There are a wide range of neurodevelopmental variations that influence how individuals learn, communicate, and interact with the world. It's essential to recognize that neurodiversity exists along a spectrum, meaning that individuals can exhibit a combination of conditions or possess distinct neurodevelopmental profiles. Some of these profiles are often described as spiky, where individuals may excel in certain domains while encountering difficulties in others. When engaging with neurodivergent children and adults, it's vital to consider their unique backgrounds. Many may have experiences related to the care system, hold special guardianship orders, or are adopted. Additionally, we must take into account the impact of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and trauma, as these elements can significantly affect the diagnosis and overall well-being. Now, believe me, I understand that this might feel quite daunting, but many of you are seasoned educators with a deep commitment to finding effective ways to connect with your students. Today, we aim to enrich your existing toolkit with new strategies that will enhance your ability to communicate and engage with neurodivergent individuals even more effectively. For us to really try to understand neurodivergent students, we must have some understanding of how their brain works differently. Neurodivergent students often experience challenges with executive functions. Executive functions are cognitive processes that help individuals plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and manage multiple tasks successfully. We can actually categorize the executive functions into three main areas. Working memory. This is crucial for following multi-step instructions, remembering what to do next, or recalling information during tasks. A neurodivergent student may forget instructions or lose track of their thoughts during a task, making it hard to complete assignments and follow along in class or remember where they were in a piece of music. So, for example, a student with ADHD might struggle to remember the steps to translate the musical notation to their motor skills, leading to frustrations and incomplete work. Cognitive flexibility difficulties. This refers to the ability to adapt to change or shift from one task to another. Neurodivergent students may find it hard transitioning between activities or adjusting to unexpected changes in routine. So, for example, an autistic student may become very distressed if there's a sudden change in the lesson schedule, the room, or a different teacher, and this can impact their ability to focus on tasks. Inhibitory control challenges. This involves managing impulses and delaying gratification. So the impact of that would be students may struggle to resist distractions or control their responses, leading to impulsive behaviors in the classroom. So, for example, a student might blurt out an answer before the teacher finishes asking questions, disrupting the flow of the lesson. The environment greatly affects executive function challenges for neurodivergent students, with chaotic classrooms making it hard to focus, and traditional teaching methods often failing to meet diverse learning styles. To support these students, educators can use visual tools, so implementing charts and graphic organizers for help, understanding, and memory. Create predictable routines, so establishing clear routines and using countdown timers to reduce anxiety and aid transitions. Don't forget, we must also try to simplify tasks, break down complex assignments into manageable steps. And we're also here to really encourage self-monitoring. So teach the use of checklists and timers and promote awareness of their anxiety signals. We will look into these a little bit more as we go through the presentation. Neurodivergent students frequently face social exclusion, which can harm their mental health. Difficulty forming friendships can lead to deep feelings of loneliness. Misunderstanding from peers and educators may lead to feelings of inadequacy. Studies indicate a higher prevalence of depression, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts among neurodivergent children. This situation creates a cycle of lack of support, leading to emotional distress, declining academic performance, and further isolation. Breaking this cycle requires early intervention, inclusive teaching practice, and robust support systems within schools. I think it's really hard for teachers to interpret students' behaviours, particularly when you're tied up, you have a class, you have activities planned, and often seeing them as being stubborn or rude or disruptive. However, it's crucial to consider that many students, particularly those who are neurodivergent, may struggle to understand classroom dynamics and may have previously been labelled negatively. This misunderstanding can lead to heightened anxiety, lack of self-esteem, and lead to potential meltdowns in the classroom. So how can we try to understand what's going on inside their brains? I was invited to a school to help a group of students understand neurodiversity better. After a morning focused on learning how executive functions affect neurodiverse brains, one class decided to create an experiment to empathize with what it might be like to experience life as an autistic child. They set up a scenario where another class was invited to participate in an experiment, a surprise maths test. The lesson began with the teacher asking us simple maths equations and instructing the students to write their answers on a piece of paper. There were a total of 8 questions, and the test was timed. Sounds simple enough, but the students started to write down their answers. Then chaos ensued. The child in the back of the room turned on a distorted click radio channel, while another music channel played softly from a different part of the room. Just as the teacher asked a more complex maths equation, he turned away and quietly stated the last number under his breath. Basically, the classes started to look around confused. One student began humming, while another was banging the drum from the next room. To top it all off, outside the window, a gardener fired up a leaf blower. The teacher ramped up the pressure with a countdown: 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Pencils down. The classroom was in a complete disarray, and the experiment synchronicity was spot on. The feedback from the students was eye-opening. They described the experience as exhausting and stressful. Many hadn't expected an exam right after the break, which made transitioning even tougher. And interestingly, a total of 10 classmates reported feeling overwhelmed by the smell of deodorant spray that had been used in the classroom before they arrived. It was like a sensory overload. This experience gave the class a new perspective. For the first time, they really started to empathize with their neurodiverse peers. The school began to adapt classrooms and schedules, not going overboard, but making small changes to be more inclusive. This approach quickly became the norm for both students and teachers alike. And I absolutely love that it became the norm. One key area that can impact our understanding better is to encourage a closer collaboration with our SEND staff, special educational needs staff, and learning support assistants. Find out if a particular student is working with a particular therapist, like an art therapist or music therapist. What can the special educational needs coordinator or FLOW, the family liaison officer, do to inform you more about an individual's learning challenges and behaviours in the school? Heads of department should work closely with these teams and offer you timely updates to any peripatetic member of staff. Being informed is being prepared. The same should apply to engaging with the families too. So let me share a little story about a student of mine. It's quite a journey. What I'd like to do is to use the information we have covered today, and I want you to fill in the gaps, understand the challenges that this young man faces, and see why I use the strategies that I chose. So picture this. A young 12-year-old boy who's just stepped into a new senior school. From day one, he was loud and a bit disruptive, making waves not just in the classroom, but in hallways too. You could feel the frustration building among his classmates and teachers during lessons. When he came to my guitar lessons, he was like a ball of energy, bouncing off the walls and chatting away randomly, totally distracted. It took me a solid 10 to 15 minutes just to get him to focus on the lesson material. He often played songs and even practiced through pieces that I hadn't set him. So it meant that we were stuck going through the same material each week. Now, here's where things got interesting. The following week, I decided to shake things up a bit. Instead of letting him settle down and sit down in his chair as usual, I asked him to drop his bags and stand up as tall as he could. I introduced a fun little exercise called sensory circuits. I asked him if he was up for something different, and he was all in. His enthusiasm was kind of infectious, I've got to admit. We kicked things off with 5 big star jumps, and I made sure to be very animated while counting. I cheered him on as he jumped, which just fueled his energy even more, and next I had him run in place as fast as he could while counting to 15. Then came the balancing act, steadily standing on one foot, and I was encouraging him, and then I would shout, right, switch to the other leg, and then back again. And then for the grand finale, I had him sit cross-legged on the floor as still as he could, and then I said, right, jump up, and then back down again, up and down. After all that excitement, he was out of breath, and I asked if I could place my hands on his shoulders and gently press down to help ground him. He agreed, and as I did, I could literally see him start to relax. His breathing slowed and his eyes settled. It was like a light switch had flipped. Once he was calm, I said, all right, let's get that guitar out and we can start our lesson now. So sensory circuits aren't a brand new concept. In fact, my own foster sons use weighted blankets at night to help ground them and settle them. We also use sensory circuits when we sense a build-up of emotions that will more often than not lead to a meltdown. So by implementing those sensory circuits early on, they learn to self-regulate. After that session, I had a chat with the Senko, his parents, and I even sent a recap of our meeting to the head of music. I shared what I was doing and why. Together, we agreed to try some new learning strategies like incorporating more visual apps and improvisation techniques into his lessons. I'll touch on those in a little bit. The best part, this young man and I have built a stronger trust. He knows I'm genuinely invested in finding ways to help him learn. We discuss his neurodiversity and his diagnosis. He's learning to accept it more, and he explains that he gets in trouble at school because he says things without realizing they are annoying or rude. He believes he is a naughty boy, but he says because he doesn't mean to or want to be, he feels sad. He just can't help himself. He knows, because we've discussed this and he trusts me, that I will report what he says back to the Senko and head of music to pass on to the relevant teachers, because it's important for us all to understand what's going on inside his brain. He's now actively engaged in our lessons, telling me what he enjoys. For example, he loves using the Tomplay app that we use in the lesson to help him with timing and playing along with recognizable pieces. He has really blossomed into a musical performer, showing off great phrasing and technique. And his parents are in on the action too. They receive weekly updates and stay engaged with his learning at home. We've even agreed, based on what he told us, that we won't have lessons during break time anymore, as he needs that time to deregulate. Now he has a set lesson time that everyone is on board with, and he shows up punctually each week, ready for his sensory circuit. So there's a really good example. By understanding and observing the signs, we can find strategies that can lead to positive outcomes. Supporting focus and engagement in neurodiverse music lessons requires a thoughtful approach, accommodating various learning styles and needs. So let's have a look at some of the several techniques that we can implement as teachers. We need to create a consistent routine. So establish a predictable schedule for lessons. Begin with a warm-up, introduce the new material, practice through that material, and conclude with a cool down. We've been using this for years as a strategy. This helps students know what to expect. Now, I include repertoire lists. I can't tell you how many students have come to me where they say they've been learning for 3 years, and they come and they can't play a piece from beginning to end. So I say to them, right, we're going to learn and develop a repertoire list. That's a set of up to 5 pieces that you can play up to a performance standard at any given time. So let's say at home, Auntie Joan's coming round and Mum and Dad want you to play to Auntie Joan. She's been looking forward to hearing you. This is about value for money. Parents are paying the money for the lessons. They want to hear that you can play something, and Auntie Joan's well impressed with that. Secondly, you are also in a position where you can play a piece when a teacher needs to. And if you are up for it, and the likelihood is if you're confident playing that piece, you are more likely to perform that in front of an audience. So you've always got something there in place to play. Now, the other important thing here is we can use this at the beginning of the warm-up session and at the end of the warm down. So you're playing pieces that are positive pieces, and you can keep on top as a teacher of that repertoire list. So you're listening and you can have your input, but always praise for the good work that they're doing in their performance of that piece. Look at clear visual schedules. So visual aids like charts or cards that outline the lesson plan. This helps students track progress and stay engaged. This will also help with practice schedules to cover all aspects of their learning at home. Give timings to each section and get them to time that section on their phone at home when they're practicing. It gives them a strict pattern to follow. Look at multi-sensory approaches. So incorporate various modalities. Things like listening, using auditory techniques, visual seeing techniques, and kinesthetic or doing methods. For example, walking up and down while playing is great for memorizing, as muscular memory versus sensory distraction helps focus us on the memorization of a certain phrase. Engage students with alternative instruments as props to make abstract concepts more tangible. For example, if you're looking at rhythms, if they're playing the guitar, for example, get them to do a rhythm on a keyboard or a drum or any alternative instrument. You can also use expressive hand movements to show phrasing. Imitate, get them to imitate you. So you do that, and they are far more likely to imitate your expressive movements with your hands. Pretend to be a conductor, conducting time with expressive freedom around the music. Really good for them to engage with you in that. I also encourage, if you've got an instrument that has 2-part harmony, get them to sing the bass line while they're playing the melody. This not only helps students understand dynamic phrasing, but it also gives them a better understanding of harmony and structure. Provide choice and autonomy. Student-driven content is really important. Allow the students to choose songs or topics that interest them. This is really good for increasing engagement and makes learning far more relevant and appropriate. Integrate short breaks. They can literally be that, very short breaks. So even if they have a break between a sections, so they can have a drink of water, or they can get up and walk around, just stretch and then sit back down again. It breaks the routine, but it gives them a focus on transitioning from one part of the exercise into the other. It also prevents overstimulation as well and resets their focus for the next exercise. Using physical movement related to music, like dancing or conducting, as I said, that really works well. So a student I'll give you an example. A student with ADHD, frequently, I know many of my students with ADHD, they're bouncing around with movement, their feet and their legs. You'll see kids bouncing up and down with their legs. Don't try and suppress that. Encourage it, in fact. What I would do if they need to march up and down while they're playing, if I've got an electric guitarist playing or a bass guitarist, I get them to put a strap so they're standing up and they can move and feel free with the actions of the music. Encourage that, particularly when they're improvising as well. A brass musician, get them to stand up. It's really good, the whole process of using the lung capacity as well. So movement, expressive movement, encourage that ADHD student. Another thing that's really helpful is talk to them about it. Ask them if they're more comfortable and what it feels like to suppress that movement. It helps you understand their processes as well. And that is also building trust. It's also giving them ownership of their condition and identifying their own actions as well. Really important. Using technology and interactive tools is a big part of what I do and a lot of the teachers that I've worked with. Apps and software utilize music educational apps that offer interactive lessons tailored to different learning styles. So programs like GarageBand or Smart Music can make learning more engaging. Look at digital resources incorporating videos, games, or online platforms to provide learning experiences. Encourage the students to use YouTube. They're watching YouTube all the time. So why not get them to look up 5 great violinists? Something that's related to their chosen topic. Get them to see how a double bass is made. How do skins for a drum kit get made? Get them to inquire a little bit more about their chosen subject. I also really encourage a lot of teachers to access on YouTube the amount of backing tracks, jam tracks, where they have them in various different keys, so many different styles. You can create your own playlists on Spotify as well, where you can do your homework, find out as many different playlists that can help the students in trying different genres and different keys to improvise along to. Improvisation with neurodiverse students is fantastic. Many of them obviously have got a very creative side to them, and improvisation is amazing. I also do this. I encourage them to sing an improvisation first before they play it. So get them to start with just 3 notes of a scale and then get them to try different various rhythms to those, any combination of those notes. Try and increase phrasing, add another note, a 4th note to it, and get them to sing along those notes at the same time. Multisensory activities here are very good for them to regulate themselves. Now, I use George Benson as an example. I remember seeing George Benson improvising, brilliant jazz guitarist, and improvising and singing while he was improvising. I thought that was magical. And then all of a sudden, I started trying this. And the brain is such an amazing tool. It automatically does this. And so when you feel that you're singing and improvising at the time, obviously difficult if you're a wind instrument, but if you're playing on the piano or playing a guitar or any stringed instrument, it's really valuable to do that and have them working with backing tracks. Really good practice there. So we're also looking at creating an inclusive environment where students feel comfortable expressing themselves and making mistakes. Really feel free to give them that option. Set specific, achievable goals. And this is a key point. These are not your achievable goals. These are their achievable goals. Be flexible in your teaching methods and have a degree of expectation that is based on their ability. Really important. I spoke about sensory circuits. We can use mindfulness exercises. With my students, I studied with Julian Bream, the great guitarist. And one thing he told me, which I relay on to my students, is if they're feeling stressed, they're just about to go on stage to perform, take a deep breath and just let it out slowly. It calms the body, it slows the adrenaline down, and means that you're not going to play at a faster tempo than you might have had you not slowed and calmed your body down. These are mindful exercises that we use on a daily basis now, but using that is really helpful to students. And again, that storyline helps attract more of an attention and helps them remember the techniques and why. I also encourage fidget tools and sensory items that students can use discreetly to help maintain focus without distraction. I always make sure that I've got some ear defenders to hand in case of external noises or distractions or buzzing noises. I've had light bulbs that have been buzzing and they've been a great distraction. So I have ear defenders that really help aid focus and encourage self-regulation. Another big part of working with neurodivergent students is their social interactions. Incorporate ensemble play. I start with beginner guitarists in ensembles or beginner bands. I've worked a lot with neurodivergent bands, and I encourage peer mentoring. So that means bringing in older buddy practices, if you like, where an older student works with a younger student, helps them tune up before the session starts, helps be a little bit chatty with them. How did you get on today? That sort of thing. Not only does it give that student a feel of inclusivity, it also, they end up being a mentor for that student. It gives them a stronger self-esteem, develops their social skills, but also I think it's a huge boost as well to the older individual because it gives them a level of empathy that you can't train. So all of these such valuable lessons in life. Creating inclusive music lessons for neurodiverse students is all about being thoughtful and flexible in how we teach. As you've just seen with the previous slide, tailoring our teaching methods to fit the unique needs of each student. It's like having a toolbox full of different tools to tackle various challenges. I love using my iPad in my lessons with the Notify app. I keep a black screen and I color code everything I write, which really helps break up the visuals and highlight key areas of learning. Plus, I share these in real time with the parents, so I can go straight from the app, send an email with the notes directly to the students on the students' email and to the parents directly at the same time. So they're engaged and seeing what the students are using and its continuity. What they've used in the lesson, they will then be able to remember the color coding when they're at home in those lessons. Just remember that one of the things I do make sure of is for dyslexic students and those with Erlen syndrome, I let them choose the background color of their choice as well, because it's what works for them. We can even take photos of music parts and put our notes across those. Just remember, don't take photos of the entire score for copyright reasons, obviously. But in fact, if we take an extract and we focus on specific areas of that extract and color code what we want them to do with that extract, really useful tools to work with. And it's all about using technology to the best of our abilities and what works for them. And remember, it's all about pacing as well. Don't feel rushed. It's essential to adjust your speed based on how the students are grasping the material. Some may need more time to process things, to practice skills before moving on. In the neurodivergent world, we have a 22-second rule. This is a scientifically proven rule that may need up to 22 seconds for an individual to process the information. Now, 22 seconds might seem a long time when you've asked a question and you've got to wait 22 seconds, particularly when you've only got a 20-minute lesson or a 30-minute lesson. It's taking you 10 minutes to get them to settle into the class. But most of the students that we've worked with that have been given that 22 seconds, they say that they feel more understood. They are able to give a more appropriate time to respond, and they report feeling relaxed, and it builds trust with you, the teacher, as well. You might have to repeat the answer, but ask them again after 22 seconds. Neurodivergence can manifest differently in boys and girls. This is really interesting and important to consider, leading to disparities in diagnosis. So boys are more frequently identified with conditions like ADHD and autism, while girls often go undiagnosed or receive late diagnosis due to masking symptoms. Girls with autism may mimic social behaviors to blend in, making diagnosis far more challenging. ADHD symptoms in girls are often subtler, such as daydreaming or making them less apparent in classroom settings. This lack of recognition can lead to significant academic and emotional struggles for girls, emphasizing the need for tailored support and identification. Utilizing apps or software that can aid learning, such as rhythm trainers or virtual instruments, allowing students to engage in different ways. If a student struggles to grasp a musical concept through traditional methods, they might benefit from an interactive music app that reinforces the same concept through games and challenges. The Rock School and other boards are implementing new ebooks and video recorded examinations that are submitted rather than having to sit through a stressful situation with an examiner present in the room. And this is all about, again, inclusivity. It's about allowing the students to feel that they are more likely to get involved in a sort of practice where they might actually take part in an examination. This is really productive, and it's about reinforcing their self-esteem, encouragement as well. I've run a series of classes in different schools where students who struggle with communication and speech and language, and are often in the classroom seen as a disruptive element, work with me in a creative sound space. From the moment they walk into the room, every communication is made in a singing voice. It helps many with speech and language difficulties, but that's another topic, and I can go into that another time. But we create a made-up trailer for a movie. They engage in it. They choose what the trailer's about. They are going to engage with it, and they are going to tell me what the film's about. Is it a sci-fi movie? Is it a love story? Usually not. Usually something dark. And what we look at is we use a digital audio workstation. My DAW of choice is Cubase. I use that in all my film sound designs and soundtracks that I create. And we use a MIDI keyboard with a plethora of special effects created through synthesizers and sound loops. Really, here the world is your oyster. When you see a student press a keyboard and it produces a French horn sound, or when you get a student to press a sound and it builds, it swells and it goes away, and they can actually use mod wheels to actually affect how that sound is created, it opens up their eyes to a new universe of sounds. And they're already soaking these sounds up in social media, sounds from films that are already there or their favorite TV shows. So we're just opening up their creative minds with new tools and expressions. Technology, as I said, is vital in making online music lessons engaging and accessible. Various digital tools and applications can enhance the learning experiences for all children, particularly neurodivergent children. Programs such as Simplify Piano, Tomplay, as I mentioned earlier, and Musician incorporate interactive features that make learning enjoyable and captivating. Recorded sessions enable children to review and practice at their own pace, reinforcing their understanding. These tools assist children in maintaining rhythm and developing a sense of timing. By integrating these resources, online music lessons can be tailored to accommodate individual learning styles as well. So if you're using Zoom as a form of teaching, this is a really good area of working, and transitioning their playing from the classroom to the same interactive practice at home in your one-to-one peripatetic classes shows continuity and routine, all essential practices for neurodivergent learners. So let's give an example. Here, this is from Tom Play. As you can see, I've actually color coded here the notes for the timing. I'm going to press play. We're in 12/8 time, so understanding compound time sequence.
I found a love
A popular tune that everybody knows
for
and very close
me.
to that choice. But I find here the actual voice is a distraction, and also they're playing it, it's too fast for them. So I've adjusted the tempo. I'm going to come in and I'm going to take out the lead voice that was distracting so we can focus on the guitar. It's at a slower tempo and we'll play it back. And actually, the slower tempo, this is quite good with Tom Play because it doesn't leave too many artifacts of sound, which is something that a lot of apps don't do. We can also look at looping sections, which is really good. When I talk about a 5 times consecutive rule, I use this 5 times consecutive rule that is invaluable. It gets them to engage. It's a fun aspect where they can choose the 5 performers that are giving them approval. 5 times consecutive helps them master and perfect as best they can a section. If you get to the 4th time and Lenny Kravitz turns around and says, "No, sorry, you made a mistake there," you have to start again. So we can annotate the scores, and it really helps with identifying dynamic markings. Helping students to see how scores are structured is invaluable. Now here we've got some more detailed apps. Many of these apps professionals use in various capacities. I will be sharing the PDF slides here so you can take these away and look at them. Frequently I use iReal Pro as a really good tool for learning how to play chords along to different genres and styles. So you can go into anything, any style you like as a backing track. Valuable resources. Band in a Box, many of you will know, but there are so many here that I would suggest you get to know them, take the time to discover them yourself. I'm a strong advocate of positive reinforcement and positive behavioral support. Remember, many young people with neurodiversity know they are different and are told they are naughty or criticized for their differences. Can you imagine how empowering it would be to praise a student like this? Build their self-esteem. Start with anything. For example, this morning, my foster son, who's quite a violent and aggressive young man, left the house without slamming the door. This is a rarity, I can tell you. So however his day has been, he might have been an absolute disaster at school today. But when he gets in this evening, I'm going to be saying, do you know what? Well done for not banging the door. Help yourself to one of the little gummy bears from the sugar-free gummy bears, point there, from the special pot, and he will go away. That's a positive behavioral support. Positive reinforcement involves encouraging desired behaviors through rewards or praise, enhancing motivation and self-esteem. Provide specific feedback that acknowledges effort and progress rather than just outcomes. For example, I love how you kept that steady pace today in that ensemble. That was really good. Well done. Regular celebration of individual and group achievements, no matter how small, to build a positive classroom culture. Often a performance, when you have been performing as a student and somebody comes up to you and notices what you were doing in that session, it really makes you feel special. Remember that and do that with every student in that group. So it's based on the value regardless of skill level. Some of my most memorable musical experiences have come from working with neurodiverse bands. although they may never perform publicly or gain recognition. The joy they derived from their musical abilities has been profound. In these moments, they express their creativity and connect with one another, drawing on each other's skills and emotions. While they continue to face various everyday challenges, the act of making music together allows them to experience something unique, an unparalleled sense of joy and self-expression that only comes from collaborative music making. This highlights the transformative power of music, providing neurodiverse individuals with an invaluable outlet for their talents and emotions. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to sort of upskill yourselves a little bit. So I'm going to put it out there for some questions. Ed,
Thank you, Andrew. That
what
was
would you like to ask?
fantastic. Yeah, we have a few minutes left for questions, so if anyone out there has questions, please use the Q&A function, and we have a few pre-submitted ones as well. So first up here, pre-submitted question. How do you combat a neurodiverse student not wanting to play anything in lessons and wanting to sit on the floor, for example?
Right, yeah. Okay, the first thing about this I would suggest is try and understand why this might be the case. Frequently, we will look at this through a neurotypical brain as being obstructive behavior. They're trying to tell you something. Exactly that. They're trying to tell you something. So with the understanding of what happens with sensory processes, look at what the triggers might be. Is there something in the room that is triggering them? So look at the sensory friendly space. Might they need to use ear defenders? Is there a noise outside which is distracting them? Because when they are in their space on the floor in that state, it's overwhelming. They can rarely see anything, the impact on anybody else. It's about them in that moment. So be very calm, very clear, and ask them, can I help you? Would you like to find a quiet space? Would you like to leave the class at the moment? Maybe offer them something where they've got a slow piece of music that's quiet with ear defenders, or even they could use sound isolating headphones, a fidget spinner or a toy or something that they can use to deregulate. Also, ask them how they'd like to be involved in the class. So we're really looking, I mean, already today you've heard a lot of the different techniques that might be able to help support that. But it's you become actually a bit like a Sherlock Holmes. You have to pick up all the signs, all the spidey senses are working. And you, with the toolkit that you've got now, you have to be able to work out, all right, what could this be? And then just ask them in short sentences so that you're opening a dialogue. That really does help. So also include gradual inclusion back into the class. All right, give them empowering decision making. Let them make the decisions. Don't force the issue because it will escalate to something worse. And you want to build that trust. That's really important. So I hope that gives you some idea. There's a lot of things we would sort of spend a lot of time delving into there. But I hope that helps start things off a little bit.
Another interesting live one here. Are there any specific adaptations you'd make for teaching neurodivergent students online rather in person?
Okay, the online area is really good. I mean, like I said, I use Tomplay online for some of my neurodivergent students. One of the great things about online lessons is that they are in their own safe space. They are watching a screen. They are controlling their sensory surrounds. So by including an entire screen with color coding, as you saw with that Tomplay app, and Tomplay there are other apps available as well, of course, but it includes so many other instruments that you can use, and you can annotate the score. So you can ask them how they would like to annotate the score. One of the challenges that you do have online, which can sometimes cause a real problem for some students, particularly when you're using Zoom, is that there's a delay in the performance and the recording. Anticipate that delay for them. Give them time to respond, and make sure you're using the right settings. There are many videos on YouTube that will help you find those right settings so that there isn't the compression on, which means that you lose a lot of notes when you're listening with online teaching. There are many other applications online that will really help you with this, but I hope that gives you some idea. It's about anticipating, but a lot of students do find that online lessons work really well for them because they're in their safe space.
We have one here which has slightly been covered. What can I do to help a student with ADHD or autism with note reading on the piano? They become very frustrated.
Yeah. On the piano, I'll tell you one of the things that I've done with a student before. I've used, because in the guitar world, and with the lute, when I was a student transcribing lute tablature was a form where they would use A, B, C, D, E for the different notes, as in A was fret 1, B would be fret 2, etc., on different strings. And with music notation and tablature on the guitar and the bass, we have another form of tablature that is understood. Now, what you can do is actually get a student to create their own form of tablature. Teach them how they would like to create music. One of the areas I really, really encourage, as I've said before, is improvisation. Now, with improvisation, if you take a score, a contemporary score, where a composer has used a graphic language to teach a student to write a piece, to perform a piece of music. I remember playing a piece by Hans Werner Henze that had some graphic markings all over the score, and it gave me the freedom to interpret that score in my own way. Try including that form of technique and get them to write a piece, maybe compose their own piece with a graphic score. It's about opening up their own creativity. It might not be the method that you feel necessarily works for you as a teacher, but we're trying to expand our teaching to incorporate things that work better for those students. Our frustrations become so obvious to them. And when we are frustrated, they are used to being seen as frustrating, and they close up and they become more restrained and introverted. We want to be able to encourage that creativity, encourage them by going, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Let's see what we can do. If you're animated with it as well, it really supports them in thinking, okay, we can create. That person might end up becoming a brilliant, brilliant composer or a brilliant, brilliant improviser. They might find new forms of neurodiverse notation for students to read and write. So I know it can be frustrating. I know this is a steep learning curve for everybody. I found that when I first started fostering, my wife would frequently say to me, do you know what? You have to change the way that you approach them. I had a level of expectation because I'd be coming away from a teaching environment during the day where I guess I had a certain level of expectation. And when I came home, a lot of neurodiverse students have age disparity, and that means that they might be able to read like an 18-year-old, but they have a mental age of understanding the concept of money of a 5-year-old. They might interpret things very, very different. So understanding where they fit in that age disparity can be very difficult and challenging. And for me to communicate like I'm talking to a 5-year-old when I'm talking to a 14-year-old, I would be able to be very clear. I would talk very differently to them. So have that in mind. Think about how you would talk to a 4-year-old child in making things very clear of what you'd like to do, it is in no way being insulting to that individual. It's about understanding the differences and how some neurodivergent students challenge and find challenging situations with age disparity. It's about us. It's about our communication. That's when you find a way of communicating with that individual. My foster son that lives with us now, he's been with us 10 years, Charlie. He came to us and he was non-verbal. The first time my wife put a meal in front of him, he said, "Oh, my darling, your money to supermarket.com." We were all flabbergasted. He talks like a cartoon character. He has communication, but he can play back. If I play something on my keyboard in the studio, he will play it back, note perfect, and he will sing a harmony to that. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
That's fantastic, Andrew. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're just out of time. We could go on for forever here. This webinar will be sent out afterwards with the slides, and hopefully we can get a web page for this and have some of your questions answered as well for everyone to view. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to Andrew. Our next webinar will be on the 11th of June and it will be Safeguarding Essentials. If you have any questions, please contact membership@ism.org. Until next time, thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you very much indeed. Good luck, everyone.